Hello, and welcome to Postcards 34, Sherlock Holmes. Here is a postcard purporting to be about the Hound of the Baskervilles. Quite frankly, I'm not even certain if anybody looking at this would even have had a clue what it is. Sherlock Holmes and Sir Henry in The Hound of the Baskervilles, reproduced from a stamp designed by Andrew Davidson and issued in 1993. Well, I'm sorry. I don't consider this anything other than a load of crap. I'm not sure that Holmes ever carried a revolver. Otherwise, why did he say to Watson, see that you have your revolver with you? I think the whole thing is a load of crap. But there we are. So that's a load of crap. What am I going to show you now? Well, that's not a load of crap. This is Sherlock Holmes Detective by Ian McQueen, and it's a very scholarly book published by David and Charles. I bought it in a charity shop. The Problems of the Long Stories, it says, subtitle. So here we are. We're clear of the town. Look at that through your magnifying glass. Okay, well. I sprang to my feet. Well, these little headings don't convey very much to you, but they could do. Here are the illustrations which down the edges have been put in. It originally appeared in the Strand magazine as things like A Study in Scarlet. I'm not sure that's the first one. It's one of the first ones. Watson and Holmes lived together for an indeterminate period at 221B Baker Street, and Holmes was a consulting, I steeple my fingers, detective, and Watson was a second-rate doctor. Conan Doyle himself had studied medicine up in Scotland. He may have been Scottish, I'm not sure. And here they are meeting, possibly for the first time, I don't know, off of a train. Holmes is not wearing his distinctive deerstalker. Was there perhaps another reason for moving to Kensington? Was the marriage possibly not as happy as might have been? In the early days, as one would expect, the picture of domestic bliss, a scandal in Bohemia, finds Watson putting on weight and tacitly ignoring that wedlock suits him. Yes, there was a Mrs. Watson entered into the affray. She was a somewhat distant character, maybe, unlike Mrs. Hudson, who did for them, didn't she? She was downstairs and used to open the door and say, Mr. Holmes, there's a gentleman to see you. And the gentleman to see them turned out to be some count from Turkey or something, and who was disguised by wearing a sort of black patch about half an inch. But Holmes saw through that immediately and said, I perceive that you're part of the Turkish royal family in exile in Kensington. Who isn't? Let us say here and now that we no longer believe in the existence of Mary Watson's aunt than we do in the orphan girl's mother. In other words, they're going deeper and deeper into the plots where Conan Doyle, in a way, hadn't ventured. I think he would be flattered, if not a little alarmed, by the breadth of scholarship. It is now time to examine two more of Holmes's cases, the 5 orange pips and the cardboard box. The cardboard box doesn't seem to have quite the élan and Victorian je ne sais quoi, does it really? Following the chapter on the Hound of the Baskervilles. Yes, he refers during some of the cases to others which he's been working on, either simultaneously or just before or whatever. And people have been at some pains to put them together. I think that's good fun. There is also an element of possible collaboration. I can't even spell the word. Corrobation? For 1887, in The Adventures of the Crooked Man, when Watson was undoubtedly married. He dates the case only by reference to the fact that he was a few months after my marriage. Well, that would be sufficient, wouldn't it? Holmes called at his home on a summer night. It must have been, therefore, summer immediately after the marriage. You see, they're pinning everything down and getting all the information, rather like police themselves. Holmes would have been proud of them. The greatest satisfaction for Holmes must have been experienced on the day when the Premier himself deigned to visit his humble roof to ensure his cooperation. This would have been in his chambers in Baker Street, of course. But he seemed to derive at least as much pleasure from outwitting the German and taking his money. Indeed, the very last words of Holmes that the good Watson ever recorded were on the subject of money, and Holmes, sensing the challenge, was as keen as ever to get his hands on it. I have a cheque for £500, lucky him, which should be cashed early, for the drawer is quite capable of stopping it, if he can. Da, 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 da. Holmes has frequently been seen as a very aloof figure, and I suppose in a way that's what he was. Watson, by contrast, is the bumbling amateur who asks questions the sort that which perhaps the audience would like clarified, if not actually shoved straight in their face. Now, here we have quite an old book, about 50 years old. I grew up with this. It is the long stories. It isn't, you know, it's the short stories. I'm so sorry, I thought it was the long stories. This is the 56 stories. The Adventures, the Memoirs, The Return, The Last Bow, and the Case Book. Holmes, of course, was pushed to his death at the Reichenbach Falls. Conan Doyle, against his will, was obliged, I dare say there was some financial inducement, like being skinned. God, I'm so funny. To bring him back. He went to the Reichenbach Falls with Moriarty, and they fell, I think, in each other's arms. The whole of the series of stories concerning Sherlock Holmes, 4 novels, Study in Scarlet, Sign of Fall, Hound of the Baskervilles, and Valley of Fear. Some of these aren't very good, I didn't think. There's one that's set over in America or something. It really is. Perhaps Holmes wanted to kill him off, Conan Doyle wanted to kill him off good and proper. First edition, 1928. This is in one, I mean, they are Victorian books written by a Victorian, but the 1928 would be the omnibus. And how appropriate to use the word omnibus. There's Holmes, pipe in mouth. Let's see what else we can see. Yes. Now, this is a bit of a swizz, because I'd read a book very similar to this before. It's a very OTT cover, isn't it? I mean, isn't it? Terrible crime is committed. I think what this is, this is a real story that happened to Conan Doyle, that somebody local to him was disliked, and probably was foreign and not particularly good at English. He may have had very limited English, and some animals were attacked. And Conan Doyle noticed that the young man who had been accused had nothing so much as very poor eyesight. If he was going to do that in the middle of the day, everybody would see it, so perhaps him. And secondly, that if he was going to do it after dusk, he couldn't even seem to jump over the fence. This was a story I knew about, and hey presto, this book came along. It's very recent, I think. A sensational murder, it says. This must be something different. In which case, I don't apologize, because it's the same but different. This book is a vivid account drawn from archival sources of Sir Arthur's untimely successful quest to overturn Slater's conviction, now considered one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in British history. Well, it's not that different, is it? A sensational murder. Margalit Fox. It's published by Profile Books. And the last one I want to show you is one of the long stories. Oh, it has a lovely cover. Look at that. Look at that. Holmes does capture the imagination. He is the most portrayed character anywhere in literature and in films. Michael Caine or Basil Rathbone or Peter Cushing, who's taking time off from being the Doctor in the Daleks film. Dudley Moore, Peter Cook. I have in my pocket a manuscript, said Dr. James Mortimer. I observe it as you entered the room, said Holmes. It is an old manuscript, early 18th century, unless it is a forgery. How can you say that, sir? You have presented an inch or two of it to my examination all the time that you have been talking. It would be a very poor expert who would not give the date of a document within a decade or so. You may possibly have read my little monograph upon the subject. I put that at 1730. In other words, the exact date is 1742. Holmes was on his best game, and this was someone, you understand, visiting his rooms in Baker Street for a preliminary consultation. This family paper was committed to my care by Sir Charles Baskerville. He goes down, doesn't he, to Devon, and Watson. They don't travel together. And Watson doesn't realise he's down there already, I think, or something like that. Many of these pictures, illustrations from the Hound magazine are reproduced, but I can't see any here. That doesn't matter. It was to your account of the West Country legend this tale owes its inception. For this and for your help in details, all thanks. Yours most truly, A. Conan Doyle. And he was writing from Hindhead in Haslemere. Be interesting to know where he lived, actually. That's not far from here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I seem to have dried up. Thank you for your forbearance. This is James Pratt saying, stay lucky. And if you do need a consulting detective, you know where to look for one. Goodbye.